what are the key skills that you look for when you are looking at a person for a promotion?
Promotion, of course, knowledge of the job. For the next job that we are looking at, person has to be extremely competent. So remember, favoration doesn't come into play, should not come into play. You have to get that off your mind, right? And it's how you select that person for a promotion. What we do is we have a written test first on the next role. So that is the base, and then we give points. And then you have a focused face-to-face interview. You give points, and then you take the average of the two, right? And then we take the first three, and then focus on these kind of soft skills and all of that. So if you take 3 people who have scored the highest, and then the person I would select is the person who displays the best soft skills, and which means attitude. What kind of attitude does the person display? For example, I remember many years ago, when I was working at Carson's, we had the Pegasus Reef Hotel is owned by Pegasus, and I interviewed I think a reservations person. He came with a mustache, and he was wearing white socks, black trousers. At that time, it was not very fashionable. If you wear black trousers, you got to wear black socks. Maybe today it might be fashionable. Now, sometimes for a blue trouser, I might wear red socks, right? So we told the guy, okay, he was very, very knowledgeable, very competent. And we told him, okay, we'll shortlist you for the final interview, but when you come, please take a shave, because in the hotel industry, hospitality, you can't be like this. And wear appropriately your socks and, be properly attired. He never came for the final.
While changing and exchanging knowledge, and of course, bringing in experience sharing as well. So to start with, we also have another exciting speaker with us today. To start off for the sessions, let me first warmly welcome all the students who are joining us from Staffordshire University, from different degree programs, and all the other corporate members who are joining us from different platforms today. And of course, the foreign delegates and diplomats who are joining us from different parts of the world, along with all the other staff members and distinguished guests. So to start for the day, I would also like to convey warm wishes and congratulations from our chairman of APIT Sri Lanka, Mr. Bandula Igodage, since he's currently not available in the platform, but he will be joining us shortly as time permits as well. So with that to start with, let me also warmly welcome Dr. Rohantha Attukorala, one of the directors of APIT Sri Lanka, at the same time, the head of postgraduate school, who is the networking personality behind this effort of bringing the knowledge of expertise to our students along with all the other viewers. Dr. Rohantha, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kaushali. And we have an outstanding human being with us. He's brilliant. I've been knowing him for a long time. He was the president of the Ceylon Hotel School's graduates. He was also the chairman of the Sri Lanka Institute of Hotel and Hotel Management subsequently. Was a board member of the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management, and also a member of the Tourism Advisory Council. Director, General Manager of the Kingsbury Hotel was one of the responsibilities that he took, while also being responsible for the group human resources, corporate premise management, corporate communication, sustainability, and group security of the Haley's Group. Prior to joining Haley's, he had several senior management positions in large private sector and public sector entities in Sri Lanka and abroad in human resource management, and previously in hotel management at Jetwing Hotels, Ceylon Hotels Corporations, Ceylon Hotel School, John Keells Holdings, Kaldari Meridian Hotel, Ramada, Hotel Dubai, Citibank Gulf based in Dubai, Carson's Cambodia, and of course Sri Lankan Airlines Limited. Then subsequently HSBC Global Resourcing and the Haley's Group. He has had management exposure in multiple sectors such as hospitality, banking, financial services, airlines, manufacturing, leisure, consumer and real estate, and he has also had significant honorary and advisory positions in the human resource and the hotel industry. A former member of the Hotel Classification Committee of Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, member of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce Steering Committee for HR and Education, also former member of the Steering Committee of the Lanka Business Coalition for Prevention of AIDS. Ladies and gentlemen, the Director, Chief Executive Officer of BMICH, the Chairman, Northern Provincial Tourism Bureau, and Board Member, Sri Lanka Conventions Bureau, Mr. Sunil Dissanayake. Over to you, Sunil.
Thank you, Rohantha, and thank you, Mr. Egodage. Both are my dear friends, and Rohantha is my long-distance relative as well, and APIT management for having invited me this evening to speak to this distinguished audience. As you can see on the screen, my topic is key skills for today's business world. So, as you know, there are many skills that we have or we should possess. But when Mr. Athukorala invited me to speak, I picked up what I thought were soft skills. Not hard skills, but soft skills. Soft skills from my own personal experiences over the years in my career, which I think makes a person stand out or differentiate the person from the others. So I'm going to talk to you on, so it basically fits in with today's business world, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in the future. These soft skills, I think, are the primary areas for a person's success. Of course, not forgetting that for a person to be in a career ladder or to hold responsible positions in the corporate or public sector, one should be very competent, very knowledgeable, academically and professionally qualified in whatever the profession or the discipline the person is engaged in. So that is the passport and that is the base. So with that, we move into our working environment, whichever sectors that we work in. Then starts the game. So there is competition among our colleagues, there is competition among subordinates, there is competition among peers, all sorts of things. So how do we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack? And to my mind, these are all my personal views. This is not from any textbook. I'm talking to you today. It's all from my own personal experiences. And to my mind, I think these soft skills that I'm going to talk to you about today are the key differentiators. And there are thousands of soft skills, but you can add to this, you can delete from this list, but I'm going to talk to you on today. But I will also at the same time, to illustrate, I will try to use personal experiences and personal examples, both successes and failures, right? So I have half an hour, I think, to speak. So during that, this presentation or the talk is usually for about 2 hours, but I have condensed it, and we'll try to manage and make the best use of the time and give you also the best amount of content for you to ponder later on. So there is this saying called fish stings from the head. Fish stings from the head. I don't know how many of you have heard this. As Mr. Athukorala mentioned, I used to work in Citibank in Dubai many years ago. Actually, it was from 1990 to 1994. So during that period, I was the head of human resources for the Gulf, for UAE, Oman, and Bahrain, based in Dubai. And this was one of the messages to our senior management team. Fish stings from the head, which means we should be an example to the other people. Like I said, our academics, our professionalism, all that is the passport for us to get to where we are. But once you are there, you are a leader. And what you do filters and cascades down to your people. What I call the tail. right? So you got to be a living example where people want to emulate you. So if you do good, it goes down as people will do the good things. If you do wrong things, bad things, then your people also will start doing the same thing. Sometimes there is this other saying, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So some of the leaders do that also with their teams and people. So please remember, fish stings from the head. Do the right things and it will cascade down to your people who will also do the right. Be a living example. Okay. So that's the introductory part of it. And then some years ago, I coined this term KSAM, K-SAM, S-A-M. K is for the core knowledge. So that we spoke about, that all of us who are holding senior jobs or middle management or entry-level jobs, we all have a core knowledge of our function and our profession and of our job. Then we also have a set of core skills, core competencies, what you call. Without that, you can't be effective in your job role. So that's the S part of it. K is knowledge, S is skills. Then comes core attitudes. Now, attitude is one of the key things. That is also all about soft skills. It all revolves around there. To possess a positive mental attitude, PMA, positive mental attitude, where you are, you are not a yes person, you are not a no person, but you display positive behaviors, where people would like to associate with you, where people would like to converse with you. I have come across so many managers in my career, when that person comes, people run away. They don't like to associate or talk to that person. I can remember in one company I worked, there was this head of legal. Sorry to say, it was a lady. Whether it was a lady or a man, it doesn't make a difference. All the time we say our door is open. You can come and talk to me anytime. But how many doors are really open to people, to your staff, or to even other people? There are times when you want to speak to the big boss, you have to filter through the secretary. And the secretary will ask you 1,000 questions. And sometimes we'll also not get back to you. I had a person like that in one of the organizations. To pass that person was the challenge for the day, to get to the boss. Right? And her attitudes are all very negative. So this legal person I was talking to you about, that person had to leave the company. The person was a brilliant legal person, brilliant, very sharp mind, very analytical mind, excellent. But the company let her go because she was creating problems for the people with her negative attitudes. She will see you, walk past through you, and then like walk past as if you are not existing. People would come and stand in front of her office, knock on the door, she would not even look up and acknowledge. Right? So those are the negative attitudes. We'll elaborate on that in a minute. Then of core values, you should come with a set of personal values, what you believe in, and display those behaviors. I think most organizations have built in values as a component in the performance management systems. You identify about 5 or 6 or 7 core values that the organization needs for every employee should display. Not the top, not the middle, not the bottom, but every organization. Every level of employee should display those core values. And in performance management, when you measure those values, it's either a 1 or a 0. For example, if you are giving points, it's either a 1 or a 0. 0 means you don't have any, even one value is not there, then you become 0 and you don't get marks for the appraiser. But if values are there, you get a 1. So there is no in between in the values. You can't display values halfway or middle way or to the extreme. It has to be at the extreme all the time. And we spoke about the mindset. Mindset is to have a positive mental attitude. Right? So KSAM, knowledge, skills, attitudes, mindset. So the soft skills and hard skills. They say soft skills, the soft skills is something that is intangible. You cannot measure it. They say the hard stuff and the soft stuff. So the hard skills are measurable. Hard skills can be seen. That's primarily your competencies. What you display at work or your knowledge, but soft skills are your behaviors. Right? So we will focus on the soft skills now. And then you need to be a transformational leader, first of all, and not a transactional leader. Transactional means you are focusing only on the transaction. So there has to be a balance between the transaction and transformation. Transforming yourself, transforming your people, transforming the organization. I remember at Sri Lankan Airlines, we transformed the entire human resources from a bureaucratic public sector organization to a top-level corporate entity within a space of 1 or 2 years. I joined them as head of HR from from Carson's, and during Emirates management on the invitation of Emirates Airlines, because they knew me from Dubai when I used to work at Citibank. And the challenge was the airline had just been privatized in 1998. And I joined in 2002 years later, but still they were continuing with the same kind of bureaucratic, difficult way of working in human resources. And if the human resources department is not positive, if the people don't have a positive mindset, if the employees in HR doesn't display positive attitudes, then the organization as a whole suffers. So we identified what are the issues and we worked towards removing them one by one. And within a space of 2 years, it became a kind of a shining department within the airline where people appreciated. There was a time that nobody wanted to come into HR, but then later they were embracing HR. I'm not going to brag about myself. We had 21 8 or 9 trade unions. We had the Pilots Guild, which is the pilots union. Then we had the cabin crew. Those were the 2 difficult unions. Then we had the technicians union, aircraft technicians, aircraft engineers. Then we had the general union, which controlled the non-professional staff. About the largest majority of the employees were in that union. And finally, at the end of the Emirates contract, when I left them, they gave me a farewell. The trade unions gave me a farewell. And they presented me with this lovely brass lamp, which is still in my hall at home, as a token of gratitude for the way we managed and the way we handled the trade unions. I don't think anybody would have, HR head would have got a farewell from a trade union. So there are different ways again, and it's all about attitude. What we displayed were positive attitude. So, and we transformed the HR department, and through that we transformed, and all the department heads pitched in, the leadership team pitched in, and they started to transform their departments, and we became a different kind of organization to work, where people love to work. And fortunately for us, there was, at the time when it was privatized and managed by Emirates, there was absolutely no political interference. We ran it like a private sector organization and we made profits. And at the time, the president was my current boss, Madam Chandrika Bandaranaike. And she, not 1 minute, would call and say, take this person, or don't take this person, or sack this person. She never interfered, or she didn't allow any of the ministers or political people to interfere with the airline. That was the success behind the airline. So I'm talking about transactional versus transformation. Whilst transactions are important, whilst that is our day-to-day work, doing various transactional work, but at the same time, we should focus on transforming everything we do. Most people tell us if we go to organization to work or start working, they say, oh, we have been doing this for the last 20, 15 years, so why should we change it? It's working well for us. But people don't realize there's always a different way of doing things. That's what I keep telling my team. Let's look at it differently. Now, the BMICH has been in existence for nearly 50 years. Next year, we will be celebrating 50 years of existence. And we have, since 2015, when I became the CEO of BMICH, again under my current boss, Madam Chandrika, and the board, and we have a very professional board, I must say, board of management. And under that, we have transformed the operations of the BMIC. We were also a very bureaucratic organization. There is again no interference from any quarter. We have board meetings, we have discussions, and they gave me the direction, and we work within that framework. And within that framework, we have been very, very successful. 2019 was our best year over the 50 years, just before these issues came up. Right? So that's all through transformation, all through transformation. We shed away all the bad practices, all the bureaucratic practices, and the customer became the king. So we now operate as any other private sector organization. And we tell our customers, we do everything that a hotel does. We do everything that a hotel does, from a dinner for 2 to a banquet for 2,000, and purely through transformation. So characteristics, you need to be a collaborator. You need to collaborate with people, and you have so many stakeholders to collaborate. You have your board of management, you have your senior management, you have your peers, you have your subordinates. And for me, the subordinates are the most important. And I tell our staff, for me, the staff comes first, employees are first. Most people say customers are first. Customers will be there if the staff are there. And if the staff handles them, treats them well, I'm talking about a service organization, right? Not in a factory or something like that where we deal with the machinery. So you need to be a collaborator with the customers, but of course within the rules and guidelines. And remember that everybody understands when you explain and tell, this is our framework, this is within what we operate in. It's how you communicate that. How is very important. We always neglect the how part of everything. How is very important. And my experience is when we explain and say, these are the things we can do, these are the things we can't do. We don't say we can't do, but which are not possible due to this and this and this reason. Right. Then we spoke about being a transformer. So you need to be a collaborator, you need to be a transformer, and you need to have intuition. You need to be able to think, this might happen. This might not happen. From the way things are moving, what is the next thing that might happen? And then have a plan in place. You don't have to always broadcast those plans. But when something is going to happen, then if you have that intuition and you are prepared and you have the plan in place, right? I already had an intuition. Now the BMICH, again, going back to my current employer and my workplace, we have been very fortunate that even during the height of all the unfortunate situations we had some years ago, we have not had any issue, any situation. But even in a safe environment, sometimes I used to, when we go and pitch, when we pitch overseas for international conferences, I used to say Sri Lanka is the safest. In 2017, we pitched for the what we call this World HR Conference, and we got it. But unfortunately, due to COVID, it was to be held last year, they shifted out. And sorry, they didn't shift out, but it was a webinar. It took a form of virtual conference. But otherwise, about 1,000 people would have come here. And what we competed with Thailand, we competed with Malaysia, we competed with Philippines, and about 2 other countries, Indonesia. And we said, we are the safest. And they came to us. So intuition, talking about the safety, and then the intuition, I always have this intuition. Could something happen? Could something nasty happen at the BMIs? If something happens, what are the possibilities of those things happening? And what type of thing will happen? And in 2019, when the bombs were blasting, on April, I think it was the 19th of April, 2019, if I remember right, Easter Sunday, I was in my office at 6 o'clock in the morning because we were going to church for Easter Sunday. It was about 10, 11 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we were going to the Kingsbury for the family Easter lunch. And at 9 o'clock, the Kingsbury calls and says, "Sir, don't come. Bombs are blasting here." And I had this intuition and I had a plan in place. If some kind of emergency happens similar to that, what do we do? So my first thing was to close the gates. I gave instructions to all the gates. Fortunately, we have a police station. I called the vice and said, close the gates. There is something like this has happened. Let's secure this place first. And they attacked the churches. And we had a church service. It's the Sunday morning. There are different religious groups which uses our facility of all denominations and all religions for sometimes for congregations. And joining my office is what we call the Nugasavana. And we had this about 800 people in there. And I didn't want that to become a target. So when I heard that churches were also getting bombed, so I ran there to the entrance. I called the organizer out and I told him, please evacuate immediately. I didn't tell him the reason why. Then he said, can't. I said, no, you have to. If you don't, I will come and announce to the people to go out. And then they very methodically, they came out and we got army platoons. Immediately we sealed the whole place and we searched. So that was because I had this intuition, if something might happen, and if it happens, what do I do? And it worked. So moving on, we talked about the characteristics, collaborator, transformer, and to have intuition. And these are, like I said, these are not academic. These are not taught in the universities. With respect, I don't know whether they do, but I don't think so. There is this book called, you all must have read it, but they don't teach you at Harvard. So these are also things what they don't teach you, right? What you learn from your own experiences. And then you come to communication. This is the most important thing for any corporate leader, anybody in the public, private, anywhere in the world. In any situation, communication is the key. Whether you speak in any type of language. I'm not talking about language here. I'm not talking about English. I'm not talking about Sinhala, Tamil, Chinese, German. No, I'm talking about the way we communicate. First of all, we need to understand what are we communicating and how do we communicate. And to the different audiences, we should change our communication patterns. I remember when I was a lecturer at the hotel school in Colombo in the early 80s, the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management, of which I became the chairman later on. I think I was the first alumni to be the chairman. I was on their faculty. I was the head of faculty for accommodation operations, that is the housekeeping and the front office. They sent me to England on a ILO fellowship to learn teaching methodology. So I was to the South Devon Technical College in Devon. It's a very nice area, south of England, near Plymouth. I was there for a year. And at the last stages of my fellowship, I had to understudy a lecturer, or different lecturers. And in one classroom, the lecturer whom I was understudying said, now it is your turn today to give a talk to these students. You have been observing us all the time, so I want to see how you deliver. So I started to, and I thought that was the time, I think it was 1980, if I'm not mistaken, the Polgolla, not Polgolla, the Victoria Dam was being opened by Queen Elizabeth. And at the time she was in Sri Lanka to open it. So I thought the best is for me to speak about Sri Lanka, what we have, what we offer, why people should visit Sri Lanka. So I prepared my talk. And so the lecturer introduced me like how Ron introduced me now. And I didn't have so much of background at the time. I was midway in my career. Not actually midway, actually. I was just starting off my career, and maybe about 5 or 6 years into my working life. I noticed that it was all British students, not multiracial. They were all not listening to me. I'm talking, they're not listening. They're giggling. They're looking at each other and giggling. But I didn't get distracted. I continued to speak. At the end of the talk, when all the students left, the lecturer who was in charge of me called me and said, actually spoke to me. He sat down and then said, I'm going to give you feedback on your talk. The first thing is, none of them understood what you said. None of my students understood. Why? because you are speaking as if you are talking to an audience in Sri Lanka. Because you are speaking in the same manner of speech that you would speak in Sri Lanka, and that won't work. When you are talking to a set of foreigners, you have to pitch to suit your accent, and the way you speak, your manner of speech should pitch for the understanding of your audience. You are very fast and you're jumbling away all sorts of things. So from that day, what I learned is to speak slowly and clearly. To different audiences, I end up different. Now, even now when I'm talking to you, I'm not talking in the normal way that I would speak. To make myself very clear, I have slowed down my manner of speech, and I think hopefully I'm coming loud and clear. Right? So, especially now, most of us in the corporate and the public sector, we deal with people from different cultural backgrounds. We deal with the Chinese, we deal with the British, we deal with Americans, all sorts of people. So we need to talk in a manner that they understand. Even when we are introducing ourselves to a foreigner, we have long family names. So better use the first name if you think they don't understand. Now, sometimes when people introduce me to foreigners, they say, Mr. Sunil Dissanayake, and they just rattle my name, Sunil Dissanayake, and that fellow is looking up and down. Then I say this, and I say, I am Sunil. And I repeat, I am Sunil. Then they say, hi, Sunil, how are you? You know, so be mindful of that. So in communication, there are different types. I won't talk about all the types. Conflict communication is one area. Conflict communications, when there is a conflict, how do you resolve it? How do you speak? At what point do you speak? Now, when I negotiate with trade unions, I always meet them halfway. They start from one extreme and I start from the other, and gradually we come to a winning situation, so that we don't compromise the organization and we don't compromise the union as well. So that is one of the, in conflict communication, first we got to understand where is the other party coming from, what do they want. And I have seen in most organizations, especially when there are conflicts, we management take a very firm stand and we stay there. We don't move an inch. So might be mindful when you do so another type is conflict communication. Then there can be violent communication, non-violent communication, and verbal and non-verbal. Verbal, of course, as you know, is speech, and non-verbal. Non-verbal, again, with emails. Sometimes we get emails for one subject, we get 1,000 emails. Why? Once it's done, they say just one word, thanks. That is also email which fills up your inbox. Thanks, sorry, I'll call you back. Email is to write something. And then the subject line. And remember that when you are writing emails, when there's a chain of mails, the subject matter can change. For example, now in BMICH, we write to every customer who gives us a business card. Especially I do that. My PA has a template. And if I get a business card, I write to that person. Either there are two types of mails. One is a person private mail, which says good to have met you. And the other one also good to have met you, but soliciting their business from their organization. Then we give a description of the facilities and all of that. Say next time you are thinking of an event, consider the BMICH, and this is why you should consider. So the subject line when we first write is good to have met you. And then they reply me saying, thank you very much, and blah, blah, blah. Still the same. My subject line is still there. Same subject line, good to have. Then when I reply, I change that subject line. Now the good to have met you part is gone. Now we are talking about something else. Right? So always remember, in a chain of mails, subject line needs to be changed to suit what you are writing, whilst keeping in mind the main topic. So main topic dash and something else, you know. So emails are actually, it's an art to write emails. Where does the comma come? Where does the full stop come? And when you type the spelling and all of that, I won't go into detail. But so conflict communication, non-violent communication, don't get violent when you are communicating. However much people try to irritate you, however much people try to make you upset, be patient, be calm, absorb everything calmly. When you are not calm, only all things go haywire. That's what I mean by non-violent communication. Just listen to people when they speak. Listening is the most, I'll talk about listening in a minute. So it's non-violent communication and verbal and non-verbal. Of course, this I don't need to explain: integrity, ethics, values. You must be a person who has very high integrity, where questions are not asked about what you did, and your personal ethics and your personal values, and that has to match with the ethics and values of the organization. If you don't have certain values that the organization wants you to have, develop them. Don't continue from where you left the previous organization. Right. So for me, for anybody, I think integrity is very high. This is another key area: humility, and go away from egoism. Be humble all the time. Whatever the position you are in, you might be holding the highest position in your organization or anywhere, but be humble. Humble means not to go and be sitting with your subordinates and having a drink or something. That you have to do when you have to do, if there is some gathering of. But humility means displaying kindness, displaying empathy, displaying recognition of other people. I remember when I used to work at Carson's, the chairman told me one day, Sunil, we should conduct ourselves. You teach I was in charge, or director in charge. He said, communicate to the employees that they should conduct themselves and behave in a way, especially the senior people, that these jobs and roles are all transient and tempered. We are not going to hold them forever and ever. And if the day that you don't have a job and you walk on the road, people should still respect you for who you are, not for what you are or what you were, who you are. Right. So when people greet you, now, for example, in Dubai, after a weekend, people ask, hi, how are you? How was the weekend? How is the family? And every morning they say hi and good morning to everybody, even from peer upwards, everybody. So when I came back from Dubai, I had that habit, and then at Carson's, I came to Carson's, and I used to say, good morning. People just look the other way and go. They don't greet you. Simply look the other way. They are not used to that. Even today in my organization, there are some people, when you say good morning, I have to say loudly, good morning, because I walk around the whole premises in the mornings. Right? It's about 2 kilometers to walk all over the place. And I greet each and every person that I meet. And I sometimes stop and talk to them. If somebody had come back after a funeral or something like that, after a sickness or a wedding, I stop and ask, how was the wedding? Is the funeral things, was it all okay? Is there anything that we can do for you? Is the sickness in the family all right? You know, little personal things you talk to them about. And you should have knowledge about the people. Without that, you can't. We can't be confined to our offices. There are people who go to office in the morning at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and they leave the office at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, but they don't get out of their offices and walk around and see what's happening. In every organization I walk, first thing is I go to each and every office everywhere. At Sri Lankan Airlines, I had to manage the medical center, the International Aviation Academy, and the HR. It was a huge HR area. And first thing I used to go around before I go into my own office and greet people in all of their offices. And you won't believe when you walk around and see things on people's desks, what you would find. I remember once in HR there was this lady who had fallen sick or gone away. And her desk was all untidy. And fortunately, her drawer was open. So the desk was untidy. So I thought, let me check the drawers also. I opened the drawers to see there were letters from employees 2 years old, which she has not responded. 2 years old, right? Sometimes it's like our inboxes. There are employees who don't read their emails, who don't respond to emails. Some people's inboxes are, there are 1,000 emails not read, right? So humility, to be humble, you have to have knowledge of your people, not only to your people, anybody for that matter. And a fine example, I keep telling people, again, my current boss, Madam Chandrika. She's one example of humility. Very humble, very, the pluses and the positives are all for her. If she calls you, she'll ask you, can I speak with you? What are you doing? If you're busy, I'll call you back late. And a person who has been twice president of this country, right? So your positions, don't let your positions get to your head. So that is where you come to egoism. Don't be egoistic. Be humble and display humility. This is one of the key areas that differentiates us from the other people. I have seen people, when they come to work, they want the car stopped right under the porch in some certain organizations. I used to stop my car far away and walk to office. If I had a drive, I would say, please don't stop here, go to that corner and stop. It doesn't matter. And there are people who, somebody else should be there to carry their briefcase to the office. They don't carry their own briefcases. So these are all egoistic habits. So get away from them, be humble, do your own thing. We talked about empathy. Be empathetic. That means put yourself into the other person's shoes. Think from the other person's point of view. Empathy. This is a key emotional matter that has to be handled. Empathizing with people and caring. Show that you care. But of course, there's a red line to draw. You don't go beyond the red line when caring. Some people go beyond the red line. That's also an issue, right? So empathetic means put yourself, I don't have to explain it, you all know it. Put yourself into the, if I was in that situation. So when people come to you with grievances, when people come to you with issues, put yourself into that person's shoes. If I was the person in that situation, how would I feel? And then start talking from that point of view. And display caring. Have a caring attitude. It's all about, we spoke about attitude. It's all this is to do with attitude. Being empathetic and caring. These are all soft skills which cannot be measured. Right? And I think these attitudes and soft skills, sometimes we are born with. But I'm not saying that you cannot learn and cultivate them. But sometimes there is, at least you must have that little bit in you, in your genes. Mind versus heart. This is another area. Don't allow your mind sometimes to sway. Sometimes we take decisions from the heart and not from the mind. Always take decisions from the mind. Analyze the situation. Be analytical and decide the best course of action. Don't think, this guy, I worked with him in my past job, he's my friend, but now let it go. No, that is, the heart is working. I remember again, if I take my Citibank Dubai example, I had a regional head of HR in Singapore, Singaporean. He used to visit us at least once a quarter. And once he came and then we go out for lunch. And when we were coming back from lunch, one of our loan collectors, the people who there are people who default loans, as you know, and in Dubai, there are collectors. They go around to their residences all over the place and ask the people to pay up if they don't pay. So here was this guy who was supposed to be a very good worker. He was in police cuff, taken away by the police when we were coming after lunch. So I told my boss, I feel sorry for this guy. He said, Sunil, don't feel sorry. He must have done something wrong. That is why he's been taken away. So if he has done something wrong, that is, he has self-inflicted, something he has inflicted on himself. And then I checked to see that some monies that he has collected, he had a fake receipt which he has given, but not credited to the bank. And when the bank calls these guys, saying you have still not paid, still not paid. They say, why your collector came, I gave, yeah, I have a receipt. Right? So he has printed fake receipts. These are good learning points for all of us, and issues. Right? So mind versus heart, make decisions from using your mind and not your heart. Heart can be for the family. Be firm and fair in everything we do. Don't show favoritism. Please don't do that. Most organizations, I'm sorry to say, most people in senior jobs, they have their favorites, and they favor them when it comes to promotions, when it comes to pay increases, when it comes to performance appraisals. If you look at your performance management systems in your organization, how many of your companies have a proper performance management system where people are really, really evaluated for their performance, where they use the bell curve. Bell curve is the bulk of the population of the company is at people who perform at expected levels. And then at the left end are the people who needs improvement. And at the right end are the stars of your organization. That's about 20% of the organization. And about 60% is the bulk of your population who are supposed to be performing at expected levels. And then about a 5% at the other end who needs improvement or who are not performing. And if you do a proper, honorable, without favoration ranking of your people, that is the bell curve that will come. But most of the time, the bell curve is weighted towards the higher end. About 40% are supposed to be stars when they are really not. Right? So that is where the favoritism comes in. And then what happens? There's a cost to your salary increases. Why? Most organizations reward performance. When you are rewarding performance, you have average salary increase, and that salary increase is weighted against the performance of each performance ranking. All of you all know these things. I don't have to explain. So if you have a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the best and 5 being the lowest, and then the bulk of the population who are performing at expected levels gets the average percentage increase. So if your organization approves average increase of 10%, they get the 10%. And then the stars get about 18%. Usually the difference is about 4 percentage points from rank to rank. And then the lower end gets a much less, and sometimes you don't give them. So then, but the overall average increase is confined to 10%. So you can't do this properly if you have too many people at the top end. And that is because you are not fair with favoritism. So, okay. So we have to now very quickly wind up because then very quickly to say self-regulate yourself. Self-regulation is doing things, not going beyond, not breaking the rules of the organization, not doing the wrong things when your boss is not looking. Right? Now, in my employment, my bosses hardly call me because they know I do my job. At Citibank, I remember Peter Hill, the CEO, he hardly used to call me. And then one day I asked Peter, you don't call me. We used to call each other by first name. And then he says, I don't have to call you. I know you're doing your job. If I have a problem, I'll call you. It's same with my current boss, Madam Chandrika. She'll call me if she has a problem with. Otherwise, she hardly speaks to me. We have a one-on-one meeting once a month. And at that we speak. And then, of course, the once a quarter board meetings. So self-regulation is performed at the same levels when your boss is not looking. And be disciplined. Discipline in everything you do. Not to misuse company property, company things, organizational things, not to misuse people. Right? You can misuse your staff also to do your personal stuff. There are some companies who do that. People do that. Don't do that. And conduct yourself in an exemplary manner. Lead by example, be a role model. Do things that other people would like to take you as an example. And be approachable. As leaders, we need to be approachable. People need to be able to come and talk to you. right? And that's the most important. However busy you are, make time for your employees. Don't put hierarchy there. If somebody comes and if the person has to, but you must not compromise their bosses. Say you go and talk to your boss first, and then and have a grievance procedure. You go to the boss first, then if the boss doesn't address, you go to the next level and the next level and the next level. But be approachable. Display behaviors that people who don't feel scared to come and talk to you. Actively listen when people are talking. It's very active listening is the most difficult thing in the world. I don't know how many of you are now logged on are actively listening to me. Right? Because I don't believe in these webinars because people don't listen to you. I always like to talk in person. So actively listening, taking down when person, especially your employees or customer, anybody talks to you, take down notes. Don't think you can remember everything. Take down notes, repeat it back to the person who was talking to you and say, these are the things I noted, this is how we will do it. I know there are people, gets a call on the mobile, then gets a call on the landline, talking to both. And then if he had another phone, he would keep on his torso also and bring that torso to the mouth to speak. And then you are speaking and the person tells, when you stop, when he's on the phone, he tells you, no, you carry on, I'm listening. And he's on the two phones, right? So be a coach and a mentor. Teach people, coach people, and mentoring is short-term, coaching is long-term. Be adaptable to any situation, to any organization, anything you do. Our organization change things, and it can change very rapidly. And we should be adaptable and be able to take on the new challenges and drive and make them happen. And be consistent in everything we do. Be consistent. Don't do the same thing today differently and tomorrow another. Be consistent. And compliance is very important. Comply with all the company or whatever the statutory or any kind of regulations. Don't go away from compliance. That's the most important thing. And pay attention to detail. Dot the I's and cross the T. Attention to detail is very, very important. I learned this from my boss at Citibank. It was a case of, I had a female boss before. I took over as head of HR. I was the training and communications manager. It was an Indian lady. She migrated to Canada. And any document I give her, she used to call me 100 times, Sunil, you have not crossed the T here. You have not put a dot here. And I thought it was sexual harassment actually. Right? No, it wasn't. And that's how you learn to pay attention to detail to every little thing. Handling cultural diversity, we spoke. Dealing with people from different cultures, different backgrounds. If you look at the newspapers today and you see some people talking to foreigners, the way they are seated, how they are, even on the television, you can see the manner of speech, the mannerisms. So you should be, when you're talking, you should be with your fingers closed here, not like this. And when you sit, some people sit with the legs wide apart, and then how, when you're talking to dignitaries, how you keep your hands on your legs, like this, not like this. So different ways, different things. So understand the cultures of different countries. If you are customers from different countries, if you are dealing with people, understand those cultures and adapt yourself to suit those cultures. Be committed and dedicated to what you do, to your organization, to your families, for everything. Be committed and be dedicated. So these are also soft skills which comes naturally to people who are strong in those areas. Be a team player and indulge in teamwork. Get teams together. At the BMICH, we do everything as a team. If there is, for everything, we form small teams. Now, the book fair is happening from the 16th of this month, from September, for 10 days. We have already formed teams for different activities to facilitate the customer. The Book Fair Association is our main customer, so they are the organizers. So we have told them, for this is the contact person, and that person has this team. This is the contact person, and that person has this team. Because 150,000 people, even in 2020, after COVID, during COVID, visited the book fair when they had it. Last year, they didn't have it. So 150,000 people per day, 1.5 million people for 10 days. And in 2020, with the COVID, we didn't have a single COVID cluster. because of all the precautions that we took and we practiced, and that were through teams. And be a team player. If you are appointed to a team, let the other people say, great, oh, he's in our team, excellent. Not for them to, oh my God, this guy is on our team, what am I going to do? Not like that, right? Gain acceptance is very important. Gain acceptance from your people, from your team, especially when you go to a new work environment, by your behaviors, how you talk to people, all of that. Now, for example, in March, I was appointed as chairman of the Northern Province Tourism Bureau, in addition to my current role. That's a non-executive role. I only chair the board meetings. But when I went for the first board meeting, they accepted me as if they had known me for years. And all are people from the North and from the Jaffna on the board. And I have a staff of 7 people working at the Tourism Bureau, all of them. And they don't treat me any differently. And I give them the due respect and they give me the due respect. That is because of the acceptance they had for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to work, right? Continuous focus on continuous improvement. Just because you did something yesterday, well, look at what could I have done differently? How could I improve this? I do that on a daily basis. In the evening, before I leave my office, I leave at about 8 o'clock. I think, what are the things we did today? Is there anything that we could have done differently? Could I improve it tomorrow? And then you make a list, and we communicate in the morning meeting. We communicate to the people, okay, you did this, but look at it this way also. Lead by walking around. Be visible to people, to your customers and to your staff. Now, I meet every single customer who patronizes, who books the BMICH at the beginning of the event or at the end of the event. And I say, thank you for coming to us. If it's at the beginning, I say, here's my card. If there's any issue, you call me. They have access to. And that's very important, right? So you can do that only if you walk around. If you are confined to your office, you cannot do that. Lead by walking around. Lead from the front. If there's a crisis, go to the front. If things are going well, give credit to your staff and put them in the front. If there's an issue, jump to the front, put the staff behind, and you take the ownership and the leadership for that and resolve the issues. But when things going up, most people like to go to the front when things are going well, and they go to the back when there is an issue. Don't do that. So I'm coming to the end of my talk. Enjoy what you do. That's the most, be passionate about what you do. Right through my career, even today, I work as if it was my first day at work in my job. When I started my career, I have a passion to what I do. And I work every single day, 24/7. Of course, I take my leave. That's a different thing. But I'm not telling you to work every 24 hours, 24/7. But important thing is to be passionate about what you do, enjoy what you do, and also create a me time. Me time means a time for yourself. For me, Sundays are my me time. I sit in office in the mornings and I think, what was the last week? What is the next week? What do we have to do? How do we do it? Me time. You can't be thinking every day, every moment. You can, but this is quality me time. And plan everything that you have to do. And please write. Because don't try to remember. Note down everything what you have to do. And all follow up with a mail, follow up with a text, follow up with a WhatsApp message. You know, you can do so many things. And when you implement, follow through to make sure that things are happening, and then have a review. Right. So talking about going back to transformation, be CPT, competent, problem-free, timely. Be competent in what you do, be knowledgeable. That is the basic. Problem-free, that means whatever you do, the person who is getting that activity should receive it without a problem. There are no errors in it. That is problem-free. And be timely. Timely means give it to somebody at the time that person needs it, not at your own time. I can give you thousands of examples on this, but then we have to grow now. And 3 Fs, fast, focused, and flexible. Be fast in what you have to deliver, be focused, and be flexible. And basic knowledge of other disciplines, not only a core discipline. In addition to that, if you are in human resources, you need to know about marketing, finance, information technology. These are the 4 main areas, I think, in an organization: human resources, marketing, finance, IT. So in whatever discipline you are in, you got to be knowledgeable about and have a basic understanding. If you are in marketing, then have a basic understanding of finance, IT, and HR. If you are in finance, have understanding of HR, marketing, and IT. If you are in IT, have understanding of finance, marketing. And of course, there are much more other departments, but this is the core. And problems known to executives, this is also very important. Most of the time, we get only 4% of the issues in the organization at senior levels. 100% problems known to staff, 74% known to their team leaders, 9% known to team managers, and only 4% come up. And if you are lead by if you keep walking around, if you keep listening to people, if you are approachable, this 100% will be your 100% at the top. Right? So action from learning, what I called a return to work plan. From this talk, create a personal development plan, a roadmap, and identify what are the soft skills that you are strong in, identify the soft skills which you are weak in. And for every soft skill, you can add to this list, scale it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is the lowest, 10 is the highest, and rate yourself. Get other people to rate you. Do a 360-degree appraisal, and then see where you are in each and where you want to be. If you want to be 10 in something and you're only 5, then create an action plan. How do I get to close the gap of the other 5? And become a brand. You should be like, once somebody told me, you are like Coca-Cola. I said, why? Coca-Cola is a brand and you are also a brand. Become a brand. Your name should be a brand. And remember, this was said by Abdul Kalam, the late Indian president. End is not, in fact, the end means effort never dies. END, end is not end. In fact, END means effort never dies. So thank you.
Hi, Sunil.
Hi, Rohanta.
Oh, lovely. I was taking some notes down, and very interesting discussion. Thank you very much, Sunil. A whole heap of questions are coming up, and before the lights go off, I want to catch you quickly. One question they're asking you is, what are the key skills that you look for when you are looking at a person for a promotion?
Promotion, of course, knowledge of the job. For the next job that we are looking at, person has to be extremely competent. So remember, favoration doesn't come into play, should not come into play. You have to get that off your mind, right? And it's how you select that person for a promotion. What we do is we have a written test first on the next role. So that is the base, and then we give points. And then you have a focused face-to-face interview. You give points, and then you take the average of the two, right? And then we take the first 3, and then focus on these kind of soft skills and all of that. So if you take 3 people who have scored the highest, and then the person I would select is the person who displays the best soft skills, and which means attitude. What kind of attitude does the person display? For example, I remember many years ago, when I was working at Carson's, we had the Pegasus Reef Hotel is owned by Pegasus, and I interviewed I think a reservations person. He came with a mustache, and he was wearing white socks, black trousers. At that time, it was not very fashionable. If you wear black trousers, you got to wear black socks. Maybe today it might be fashionable. Now, sometimes for a blue trouser, I might wear red socks, right? So we told the guy, okay, he was very, very knowledgeable, very competent. And we told him, okay, we'll shortlist you for the final interview, but when you come, please take a shave, because in the hotel industry, hospitality, you can't be like this. And wear appropriately your socks and, be properly attired. He never came for the final interview. So that was an attitude issue. He didn't want to take our positive feedback, So the key focus for me, the key focus area is when I sit on an interview panel, the department heads look at from a technical point of view. I would sit and look at it from a attitudinal point of view. And I would ask, we have a certain set of questions that you make. It's called targeted selection. Targeted selection means you have a set of competencies, both hard competencies and soft competencies, soft skills and hard. And you make about 2 or 3 questions to get information out of the candidate whether this person possesses all these things or not. Right? So when you even, I wouldn't say even promotion or even to hire somebody, number one is no favoration. You can't say, I knew this person's father, I know the brother's son, and all that is out of the window. To be fair by the organization, you have to, the organization has given you a job and a responsibility. So you have to be fair by the organization and select the right people. Because remember, people might say, okay, let's take this guy in and we have the probation period to let the person. Probation period is just on paper. You can let the person go. You go to the labor, then you have to go to cases, you have to prove why you did that and all this. And rehiring is very, very costly. Right? So make the correct choices even for a promotion or a first-time recruit. But to do all of that, you must have your procedures in place properly.
Sunil, there's a very good question coming up, and it's saying there's a lot of issues in the country, and there are a lot of challenges. We who are starting for the MBA, what advice can you give, given that you are a very successful professional working for Sri Lankan Airlines to Haley's, and of course now you're heading BMICH. What is your advice to us as youngsters?
I think I touched on that in some way or the other. I think the number one is adaptability. Adaptability is number one. Adapt yourself to suit the situation. Adapt yourself even for the future. Like I said, intuition. You have to think this. Now from here, we might go here and here and here. And with all these crises, that's what we did at the BMICH. Right? We still don't have a loss. For the last 2 years, we didn't make a loss in our profitability. Right? That is because we were adapting to different evolving situations and we had plans in place. So I think adaptability is the key, and intuition. You have to think this now, next, this might happen, this might, and if these things happen. Now, when I was coming, I saw a petrol queue at Horton Place. I asked the driver, no, there's a petrol queue again. He said, yes, sir, again started. So immediately I thought to myself, now for our vehicles, all of these things, we need to have a plan. Right? You got to plan. So adaptability, planning, and intuition. Those are, I think, to me, the three things. I have personally gone through all these issues. I was at the heart of Carson's when the central bank bomb blast happened. I got injured myself. This eardrum is broken. I don't have eardrum in this ear. I narrowly escaped death. I went to evacuate the staff and the whole ceiling came down on me. I was the first walking patient to go to the general hospital. And I was flashed with the front pages of the Herald Tribune and the Time magazine running down Hospital Street from Carson's with my all blood pouring down. Right? But again, just because I got injured and that day I had a threat to my life, I immediately came back to work. As soon as I was well, I adapted myself to the evolving situation. We had to shift buildings, we had to do this, we had to do that. So some people cannot adapt. We are living in the past. Don't live in the past. That's the most important thing. Forget about the past. Things have happened. We can't change it. Live in the present, plan for the future. That's my advice to you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was fantastic listening to you. Sorry, we have to come to the close. I'm so sorry. So many questions have come up, but maybe we'll have another session subsequently.
Or if you want, you can send. If you want, you can send me the questions and I can send you the answers and you can circulate them also.
Thank you so much. Kaushali, over to you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Indeed, such an inspirational, such an amazing input. As we always say, students, this is the information that you will not be able to find in theories inside the books all the time, because experiences change from one to one, and we want you to have that experience shared and heard so that you can fine-tune your journey of learning. So that brings us to the end of another session, and we'll meet back again in another week's time. Until then, do take care and good night from Colombo.
Thank you.
you.